Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's licensing subcommittee meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. My name is Councillor Paul Alexander and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. If I lose connection and cannot reconnect, Councillor Florian Chevert-Verdier will take over for me. I would like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add any additional information other than at their allotted time to speak, they must use the raise hand function so they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief and to the point. If any councillor leaves the meeting or loses connection during an item, we will pause and wait a few minutes for them to reconnect. If a councillor is not present for a substantial part of the discussion of any item, they will not be included in the deliberations. The quorum for this meeting is 2 members of the committee. If we have fewer than 2 members in attendance, I will adjourn the meeting. I now move to item 1 on the agenda. Apologies for absence. I have no apologies for absence, so I move on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest?
No, Chair. No.
Thank you. Item 3. Sorry, is it Emily who has a question? You'll have to unmute to ask your question.
Now.
You're still muted.
Yes, hello. Sorry, we were sent a link for an incorrect agenda, so we don't have the agenda for this meeting. The agenda we were sent was for a meeting North End Road, 27th of July.
May I suggest you go to the council's website where all the relevant agendas are posted?
Right. Sorry, is there no way somebody can quickly send that to us now?
I can't stop that. I can't send you copies of agendas.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I'll quickly send a link round to all.
Thank you very much, Lorna.
Thank you, Lorna.
Would you lower your hand and mute your microphone, please, Emily? Okay, item 3, Tigers Diner, 288 Uxbridge Road, London W12 7JA. I would like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourself as I call on you. We should have with us the applicant, is the applicant here?
Is the applicant here? Somebody has just joined. Tony. Tony is the...
Good evening. Yes, I am speaking on behalf of the applicant, but the applicant does not appear to have arrived yet.
We have somebody called iPhone has just joined.
Can you find out who it is, please, Karen?
Okay.
So, Mr. Hunt, in the event your applicant doesn't join the meeting, are you happy to proceed on his behalf?
I am, yes.
Okay, thank you. So, is Akil Ekif, so that is the applicant. Tony Hunt, you're here. Sofiane Kiresh. No, I'm going to mark that as not here. Lorna McKenna, the licensing officer. Yeah, I can see you're here. Thank you, Lorna. Susanna Brockbank. Is Susanna Brockbank here? Is Miles Brockbank here?
I can see they're here, Chair. They may have problems unmuting at the moment.
Is Mauricio Karam?
Hello, good evening. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Leland Adiyeman? Lucinda George?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Samuel Allen? Gwendolyn and Michael Bradley?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Can you put the name up for us, please, Karen? Because I don't have anybody called iPhone on my list. Virginia Ironside?
Yes, I'm here.
Dr. Catherine Collins?
Yep, that's me.
I've got different names for you. How would you like to be addressed?
No, Tilly is fine.
Thank
But
you.
you can call me Catherine, I'll answer to both.
Okay, thank you. Emma Plunkett?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to just explain the procedure to you, but firstly, I would apologise because we seem to be having quite a few IT issues, and I'm not sure what the problems are. Goethe?
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I want to introduce myself to everyone. I'm Gerta Kodela. I'm the legal officer for the council tonight.
Thank you. And also is Carol Friggis Thomas, our community safety officer.
Present, Chair.
I do apologise for missing you out earlier, Carol.
No problem.
So before I begin, I can confirm that in addition to the main agenda, two supplementary agendas containing additional information from the applicant and on neighbouring premises were published and circulated to all parties on the 10th and the 13th of February. Now, the 13th is today. Before we consider the application today, please may I quickly explain the procedure the committee will follow. So firstly, we will hear from the licensing officer who will introduce the application, two, the objectors who have registered to speak, and finally the applicant and his representative. Usually each party will address the committee once, usually for a maximum of 5 minutes. Those speaking on behalf of other parties may get more time at my discretion. We will ensure each side has equal time. No party has the right to ask questions of any other party during the hearing. Following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. The committee will then retire for deliberations. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. Please keep your remarks as concise as possible. And I'm just going to repeat that in simpler language. So we will run through the list of the licensing officer, the objectors and the applicants who will all speak. And after that, you will then get a second bite of the cherry to sum up your point of view. Following the representations and questionings, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case of representation. The committee will then retire for deliberations. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. Please keep your remarks as concise as possible. Officers presenting, can I ask the licensing officer, Lorna McKenna, to introduce the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. On the 19th of October 2022, an application for a new premises licence was submitted by Mr. Akil FK to the licensing authority. The application is in the respect of the premises known as Tiger's Diner, 288 Uxbridge Road, London, W12 7JA. Further to conversation with the police, the licence holder has agreed to amend the licensable activities to the following. the provision of late night refreshment indoors Fridays and Saturdays from 2300 hours to midnight, and then off the premises Thursday 2300 hours till midnight, and Friday and Saturday 2300 hours till 12:30 a.m. Sorry. To summarise this, the premises will be open no later than 11 p.m. Sunday to Wednesday. On Thursdays, takeaway is available only until midnight, and on a Friday and a Saturday, customers can eat inside the premises until midnight and operate as a takeaway until 12:30 a.m. Non-standard timings are also agreed with the police that during the month of Ramadan of licensable activities from 2300 till 1 a.m. The licensing authority received 26 representations in objection to the application. 25 representations were received from residents and one representation from community safety. There was no representations received during this period from any responsible authorities, and the application was advertised in line with the regulations of the Licensing Act 2003. There has been 2 further supplementary agendas which have been attached and circulated, which include a summary from the applicant and a list of the neighbouring premises licensable activity agreed times from the licensing authority. The hours provided on both supplementary agendas do highlight some discrepancies, and please note that the hours which have been circulated by the licensing team are based purely on the hours that we have got recorded for permitted licensable activities and not the premises opening times. I can confirm that the supplementary agendas have been circulated to all parties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lorna. Can I now go to the Community Safety Officer, Carol Friggis-Thomas, please?
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. I'll just briefly sum up the reason why I've objected to this application. I won't take the full 5 minutes, mine's quite brief. But as a community safety officer working in this area of the borough, Hammersmith and Fulham, I get a lot of reports. I deal primarily with street-based antisocial behaviour and disorder, and I work very closely with partners like the police, the councils, let officers, and my internal colleagues. And one of the issues that that has plagued me for some time is quite a few premises along the Uxbridge Road. I'm not naming this particular premises, but quite a few premises along the Uxbridge Road. Their customers and people who use the premises do cause a lot of antisocial behaviour. Primarily, it's more has an impact on residents at night time. So the fact that this business is applying to open a bit later on in the evening, where it does have a lot of impact on the residential streets, that's what's concerning me, because I have dealt with quite a few complaints from similar premises off of the Uxbridge Road who do operate in that location and who do cause a lot of issues for the residents who live locally. This premises is located at the top of a residential street. I can only assume, and it will probably come to light a bit later on, that it does include riders delivering food to other premises, to people's homes. It will include drivers, maybe delivery drivers, maybe located in the area, and that is one of the problems that I've dealt with for quite some time. And so I do feel that I need to object, because these are the issues that I primarily would be dealing with if this application is granted. I work very closely with residents, and they've also voiced to me their concerns regarding this premises. So on their behalf, and I know there's residents here who can speak on their behalf themselves, but I want to say that I object to this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carol. Now, if I can come to the residents, and we've got lots of residents to speak. So just speak in your normal voice, please, and just tell us what you think and the reasons for your objections. Now, if I start with it's just the order on my list. Firstly, Miles Brockbank.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you're coming up as Susan Brockbank.
Yeah, sorry, that's my wife.
Okay.
So we speak as one. So we pretty much live vaguely opposite Tigers, and also very close to Revive, which is a coffee shop, and it seems to collect a collection of a huge amount of delivery drivers who park up, and I don't know whether they got parking permits. I'm not sure. Also, there are quite a lot of cars parked there that seem to be just sit there with their engines running all day. There's normally 20 or 30 people, or at least 20 people in the street most of the day, and at night there's a huge amount of drugs taken. The smell of marijuana is very distinct, and a lot in the morning, particularly at the weekends, the whole pavement and road is covered in canisters for smoking in, blues, hippie crack, I think they call it. And the council, because we had a meeting at a one-to-one meeting about the problems around Westfield, the council are not allowed to pick those things up because they don't fit in with the legislation about picking up rubbish, because they don't fit into the recycling thing. So they're left all over the street by the people who pick up rubbish, which is Serco, I think. So a lot of mornings it's covered in these canisters. There's cars with their engines running, which I think is now illegal in London. People smoke marijuana completely openly, and I asked the police about that, and apparently it's still illegal to smoke marijuana in the street, and a huge amount of cars have no permit, and I'm a resident. I have to pay my permit. I have to pay my council tax. I clear up rubbish on the street myself. And I think that's not really the way forward.
Thank you very much, Miles. Is Susanna Brockbank there, and does she wish to speak?
No, she's asked me to speak on her behalf. She has exactly the same view. We live in the same house. We're married. We have 3 children, and it's quite distressing for children to walk down the street with openly drug abuse going on to quite often to 1 in the morning.
Okay, thank you very much. And before I go to the next applicant, can I ask Karen from Age of Governance who the phone number is who's just joined the meeting?
Yeah, I have chat with them and asking their identity, and once they tell me, I will just rename their. So
they can't come into the meeting. Okay.
The iPhone, Samsung, and then the phone number, I do not know.
So could you please get that checked out? But in the meantime, they can't participate in this meeting. Okay. Can you remove them, please, Karen? So the number I'm asking to be, so can we have the name of the person? I understand, I've just got a message from another resident that says it's Gwendolyn Bradley. Could I please ask that you correctly ascribe the name to her? Thank you. I see Emily's got her hand raised, but I'm not going to take any questions at the moment, please. Now, I'd like to go to Mauricio Karam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. So I'm Mauricio Karam. I'm a resident of the neighborhood very near to the premise that is asking the licensing permit to extend their opening hours. I objected based on the concern, as we know, Oxbridge. I think they changed the term, but it used to be called a saturation zone. As the safety officer mentioned, there are strong links between restaurants and places that open until late with antisocial behavior. And there's a clear history of issues, regardless of the things and measures that the applicants put, whether it's a CCTV or that even if they don't sell alcohol, it is known that places that open until late attract people that are intoxicated or that come from parties, and hence issue problems of antisocial behavior. There's a lot of pollution associated to that and rubbish. We have a serious problem in Oxbridge and in this part of Hammersmith with that, as one of the neighbors already expressed. So in addition, there's a lot of precedent. There's a lot of restaurants in the past couple of years that have requested extended hours, and because of these reasons, they have not been permitted to open for longer hours. Finally, I just want to state that the few restaurants that have very late hours opening, those were granted a very, very long time ago. I'm not sure if some of those are the ones that are causing issues already, but in the past few years, the council has rightly rejected all license to extend very late. So my concerns are related to antisocial behavior, pollution, rubbish on the street, crime and violence that this place attract, and this has nothing to do with the will of the owners or operators of the premises. It's just a proven a record of how these premises that open late attract these issues. Thank you.
Thank you too. And I'll move to Lucinda George, please. Sorry, Lehman Adiman. So while we're waiting, Gwendolyn, why have you got your hand raised? Do you want to ask a question?
No, I didn't want to ask a question. I would just like to make a short representation because I've got children to put to bed. Yeah.
Okay. So all right then. I will. While we're waiting, I'll change the order. So because you are on the list, so we've got Gwendolyn and Michael Bradley,
yes.
And
yeah,
I can exercise my discretion. You arbitrarily have 5 minutes, but because there's two of you, you have 10 minutes. But I'm going to ask you to try and condense a little bit if your points are the same.
Don't worry, we have the same points. He's not with me, but he endorses everything I say because we are married and we live together in the same house. So we have 3 children, and the youngest one's a primary school age, and we have lived on the street for 12 years. And the antisocial behaviour has absolutely got worse on the street in terms of drug taking, noise at night, terrible problems with the end of the road with people illegally parking, all the Uber drivers and the scooter drivers. They're all hours of day and night with their engines running. And given that I'm on the street every day with my children, it's just not a very nice it's not a very nice experience for anybody. And we've had lots of nasty experiences with aggressive people, drunk people, out of their heads on drugs people, and going for a late night license is only going to sort of that's what's already quite a volatile situation. That's the end of my representation, but I just wanted to add my thoughts to the mix.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping it so succinct. Can I just add at this particular point, there's so many of you so far who've mentioned problems in this area that irrespective of the outcome of this licence application hearing, I would like you to contact your local councillors to discuss some of these problems, and they'll make sure that the correct council officers are dealing with it if they can deal with it. So if you don't know who they are, you're very welcome to email me, and I will forward on your representations to the appropriate council officers and ward councillors.
Great.
Thank you, Gwendolyn.
Thank you.
So I'll now go back to Lehman Adiyaman. Lehman, can you hear us? Okay, we'll come back to Lehman. Can we have Lucinda George, please?
Hello. Yes, I'm a resident on Loftus Road. I've lived here for nearly 20 years, and like with everyone else, it has got considerably worse over the years, and it's been appalling with the number of people with Revive. But what particularly with this application is very concerning is the outside service. In addition to all the other issues that have been raised by neighbours, I don't quite understand why they should be applying for permission to serve outside when that's a public it's a pavement area. So that, you know, I have problems walking past all these people during the day and the evenings. And what worries me, more people will be congregating on these pavements, more rubbish. It's not safe. I don't feel safe walking around on my own. I usually cycle just to avoid the crowds. And even that isn't safe because people double park and they suddenly stop their vehicles. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lucinda, and again, thank you for keeping it succinct. Can I go back to Lehman, if you can hear us? Okay, I'll go to Samuel Allen now, please. Is Samuel Allen here? Okay, I'll go to Virginia Ironside, please.
Hi, I've been a resident here for over 40 years, and the trouble on the corner has got considerably worse over the last few years. I endorse everything everybody else has said. The drug situation is ghastly. There's noise. People who sleep in the front of the house can't sleep because of the redding of motorbikes and toing and froing of capable takeaway people. Women are frightened of coming back at night. And we've had quite a few meetings with police. Well, I say quite a few, one or two, organised by Cliff Pinto, who's an enforcement officer. It has a reputation already for being troublesome at that point. On top of that, there doesn't seem to be any effort to make it nicer for the community. They painted the entire place black, covering over all the bricks. Already graffiti is appearing, which hasn't been removed. It's just another chicken shop. And there are plenty here already. When they arrived, I don't know if this was anything to do with them, but an illegal advertisement was put up above the restaurant itself. And it was enormously difficult getting it taken down. I mean, no planning permission had been applied for at all. So it doesn't have a good record. And as for there being any kind of anti-Arab feeling, which was implied in their letter, this is utterly ridiculous. when the mosque arrived, I actually gave a party for the mosque to be introduced to all the local leaders here. We get on terribly well with everybody, as far as I know. And I was rather upset by that. But I think another place that adds to the crowds on the corner of drug taking, and I mean, they're young men, you know, they muck about. And anyway, I will say goodbye because I've talked enough.
Thank you, Virginia. Tilly, please.
Yes, I'm just coming. Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Well, I echo everything that everybody has said. And really, the problem that we have is an extension of hours that will contribute to increased antisocial behaviour by delivery drivers. We have an excess of delivery drivers in the area already, which serves the shops along the main drag. But this is an additional shop that's actually on our street. I am a parent on Loftus Road with the others. We have a real delivery driver problem, and we really, really cannot, it can't get worse. Please do not let it get worse by extending their hours. It is deeply problematic because we have real junction risk, people pulling in and pulling out and motorcycles going in and out. They tend not to be alcohol drinkers, but there is a lot of dope smoking going on. My teenage daughters have to be fetched from the bus stop now because they get cancelled as they walk up the street. So we already have these problems. We already have this antisocial behaviour. And I have no objection to the restaurant per se, but extending the hours for deliveries even further and creating an even greater problem to us when we're really trying very hard to liaise properly and have the problem tackled and get cameras installed and have improved lighting is really not working with the community. So please don't add to our problems. We're trying really hard to solve them in a very consultative way, and just more of the same is not helpful to us. Thank you.
Thank you too. Can I come to Emma Plunkett, please?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Emma.
I would like to reinforce what everybody else has said, but add a couple of extra points. I have lived in the streets since 2006, and I have lived here with my husband since 2010. And the street has become a fairly dangerous, violent place in that period. And just to stress to the chair that we have complained repeatedly to councillors, to police, to highways, every aspect, every side of the council about various issues related particularly to the junction of Uxbridge Road and Loftus Road. We have even requested cameras because at the moment the street cameras do not point down the Loftus Road junction. So there is no record of this bad behaviour other than what the authorities have seen and reported. We've made complaints to the police, including Thomas Cook and Ben Lambert, the community officers, to such an extent that the council should not allow the application for late licensing in an area that is suffering these problems. It is proven that the Licensing Act of 2003 leads to dispersal issues, and you have been hearing about them now. There is also, at the moment, there's something called Project W12, which I'm sure you are aware of, and it enforces partial closure legislation of the Shepherd's Bush Green. And this was put into place in the autumn, prompted by the Caxton Village Group, who were experiencing the same dispersal issues due to late licensing that we are experiencing. And this legislation, Project 12, extends down the Uxbridge Road. It needs to be now enacted for the Loftus Road because what is happening, the council is pushing all the delivery drivers further and further away from Caxton Village, and they have now come to Loftus Road. Delivery drivers, Uber drivers are parking in our bus lanes at our junctions. Somebody is going to get killed. I've witnessed, blue light incidents on that junction. We've had a fatal stabbing recently in Uxbridge Road. There's been a drugs-related stabbing that, in fact, was a murder in Loftus Road. You've got to stop these late licenses. There are also, another point, there are residents who live above the premises. And I happen to know, because I spoke to them, they do not feel in a position to object because they're concerned they're going to lose their homes if they object to this license. The owner, I'm afraid, is a person of ill repute, and this needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Now, I had a message that Lehman was having problems contacting or getting connected, in which case, is there another resident here who knows Lehman who would like to speak on his behalf? Okay, then I'll move on to the next section, which is the applicant. Can I ask Akalefki and his representative to give a presentation? They can take up to 50 minutes of time for this. I would ask them to consider whether they really need to take all the 50 minutes. And can I either hear from Akil or from Tony Hunt, please?
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Tony.
Sorry, I'm having a few IT issues. My applicants appear to not have attended this evening. I've had a bit trouble getting hold of them. Thank you, Chair and members. As to the residents, I completely understand. These are problems that we face across London. And I do actually sympathise with some of the stuff that's been said this evening. However, I genuinely believe that this premises is quite upmarket compared to the other premises along this piece of road. Obviously, I've been down there myself, and they are genuinely catering or trying to cater for the family market. We're obviously at the moment only applying for 1 hour beyond 1100, 2300 hours. Apart from the Friday and Saturday where we're going an hour and a half beyond that. It is a very family orientated restaurant. There is no alcohol being served, obviously. There is no drug taking being tolerated in and around the TV, which should further enhance the safety of the residents within the local area. But we are keep out of the way and possibly inside the shop until a delivery made. Obviously, we try and add a litter pick because that seems to be one of the serious issues surrounding.
Sorry, Tony, to interrupt.
There's lots of litter involved.
Tony, sorry to interrupt you. Miles, could you mute your microphone, please?
Sorry, say that again?
No, it's not for you, Tony. Miles, could you mute your microphone, please? So Miles and Susanna, you're both you signed in twice. Once as Susanna, once as Miles. The Miles sign-in has an open microphone, and it's causing problems. Can you hear me, Miles?
Yes, I'm just, I was unmuted, and now I'm going to unmute again.
So it's not on this account. It's you're also signed in as Miles Brockbank in your own right. So have you got another computer running? Okay, I'm not picking up anything. So, Tony, sorry for the interruption. Would you like to continue, please?
I think there are some issues with the general area, and it's and obviously they've been pointed out. We're looking for extra cameras and lighting, and more safety measures. Obviously, that's obviously not down to our premises. That's down to the council in general, and I'm sure within time these enhancements will be. But I think that better quality premises to the area will only enhance the area and encourage the correct people to use the area. I don't think I've got anything more to add here.
Well, again, thank you very much for your brevity. And of course, you will get adequate time to sum up after we come to that section. Now, having heard from everybody, I would like to ask our two councillors to ask any questions, and so over to you, Councillor Stanton and Councillor Chevert-Verdier.
No questions from me at this time, Chair.
Councillor Chevert-Verdier.
Yep, thank you. Okay, I'll start with page 26 of the original report, and that's in one of the objections. It says, I feel to have an additional outlet selling alcohol is a recipe for disaster. So my question is the business planning on selling alcohol? And there's also a mention in another submission about tobacco. So.
Sorry, can you, Councillor, can you clarify who your question was to?
Oh, I guess to licensing. Yeah, sorry.
Is that I can help with that one, Councillor? Sorry, I can confirm that there's no sale of alcohol as a licensable activity added on the application. It's just for late night refreshment at the moment. I think sometimes people see a license and they assume it may be for alcohol, but it's not in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question was on page 40, and that's another objection. There's a mention that the cafe opposite the road doesn't have a license. Could you confirm to us that it does? And that's the licensing again.
Just looking at that at the moment for you, Councillor. I don't think it's got an address of the cafe. We would need to, we'd need to come back to you on that one if that's okay. We need to have a look at a map and see if that's got, if the premises they're speaking about actually is licensed or not. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one shortly if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Another question was about page 49, and that's another residence objection. Now, I suppose that's the question both to the applicant, but perhaps the applicant could answer this first, and then licensing if they have anything else to say. There's a mention that outdoors, I'm quoting, is understood to be of the public pavement and road in Uxbridge Road and Loftus Road, as both entrance doors access directly onto public space. So the map that was provided in the pack shows there's a blue door on Loftus, but that goes up to the flats, if I understand correctly. There's a door at the back, which is a sliding door, and there's a door at the front. So could you, the applicant, could you clarify for us are you planning on using any outside areas to welcome guests, serve food? And are you planning on using any of the doors on Loftus Road, whichever they may be, as an access for guests or staff into the venue? Thank you. And actually, it looks like the agent has left the meeting, so we have no one from the applicant, it seems.
Okay, do you have any further questions?
Can Adrian from licensing, can you take this?
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, in terms of outdoors and what it means from a licensing perspective, that's food being taken away from the premises. So it's not very usual that a premises would use the outdoors element to actually be selling food outside on the highway. But obviously, that's something that the applicant would clarify. But yes, I mean, that's you know, the terminology behind it anyway. And if it's indoors, it means people consuming that food inside that licensed premises, and outdoors is takeaway. That's the interpretation of it anyway.
And about the door at the back, from the public pack that we have, can we understand that that can be used as ingress and outgress for guests and staff?
I wouldn't like to say that for certain. Obviously, we're just looking at the map as well. So I think that is really one for the applicant. I wouldn't like to say for certain whether that would be the intention or not, unfortunately.
It's a bit problematic if we haven't got the applicant to answer these questions.
I agree.
Whilst we await if the applicant comes back, I have one more question. And this is to you, Adrian, and your team. For sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not starting a debate about freedom of speech, what residents can say, cannot say. Not this at all. But I wanted to still ask, I'm so happy actually some of the residents have said tonight that they value the diversity of the place they live in, and one of them also has reinforced that in writing. So I'm really, really happy. And I know they do, I trust them. But there is one representation that talks about stuff. And I was wondering if you could tell us what the value for our decision making was of including stuff in the public pack, such as they shout to you in Arabic and they don't even bother to learn English, stuff such as, I mean, I'm a member of LGBTQ plus community, and it says somehow I don't feel welcome, speaks on my behalf. More Muslim restaurants here. Every day I have to watch women enslaved by men.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Verdier's questions. Licensing, please, can you explain what the criteria is when people write in and any standards we have before these are published? Because we don't want anything nasty coming through the back door.
No, I totally agree. It is a very difficult balance that we need to strike. Obviously, a lot of representations can often be quite emotional, and sometimes some of the language can be quite inflammatory. And we do like to publish as much information as we can so that, you know, members can make a decision. But I do think after reviewing, you know, the comments at page 33 that has crossed a boundary, and I think that should have been redacted. I'm not sure that a lot of the information in there is going to be useful for members when they're making a decision. So I think what we can do is we can redact that and make sure that in future that's not available on our public facing part of our website. And I think, yeah, we'll also need to make sure that we have a look more carefully at comments in future and maybe redact comments of this type. It is difficult because sometimes you do get some comments, and in amongst those comments there's context about why that person's making that representation. But I can see certainly from the bottom of page 33 there's a paragraph there, and I don't think it adds much to that person's representation, and it was certainly got racist undertones anyway. So yeah, that's something that we'll look more carefully in future. I think mainly when we look to redact representations, we look at personal information, but I think, yeah, we'll look more closely at the content of that as well in future.
Thank you for that information and for clarifying that. Do you have any further questions, Councillor?
No, but I do have to say that if I can't get the applicant to answer some of my questions, it poses a problem for just being able to understand.
Okay, can I just ask the licensing officer, Lorna?
Yes, Chair.
I saw your hand was raised.
Yeah, I was just looking at the premises opposite the cafe. There's no license held on record for Revive Cafe, and nor for the premises directly opposite it either, over the other side of the road.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. I see Antonio Hunt has come back to us. I'm sorry we've lost you for a while. We're at a point where Councillor Charlotte Verdier had some questions that I think he wanted to sort of direct towards you. And can I go to those now, please?
Thank you, Chair. It was just to ask you, some residents have asked whether you're planning on using any outdoor area for seating, for eating or drinking. And the second question is, there's a door that's further up on Loftus Road, a sliding door. Are you planning on using this for ingress and egress of guests or staff? Thank you.
So regarding the door, that's a firm no. The external area to the front, we have not applied for a pavement license or to use that external area. I don't believe there are any granted along that stretch of road. I may be wrong, but that is not the intention at this time, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanton, please.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for your representation so far. Just a very quick question to the applicant or his agent, which, if you can answer this, just to get an idea of the business model, can you let me know which methods of delivery you use? You know, which firms is it you use, or do you use your own drivers? And also, what is the current sort of volume of trade that you're doing, both indoors, but also by delivery at the latter part of an evening?
Generally, I'm afraid I cannot answer as to the amount of deliveries. Currently, obviously, it would be good for the applicant to answer that question. The general indoor trade is fairly good, hence the application to extend for an hour. But the delivery bikes are the two main protagonists of bicycle delivery, Deliveroo and I can't remember the other one. Deliveroo and the other main.
Will it be Just Eat by any chance?
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's just I know someone will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm fairly certain that at least one of the delivery firms will give an undertaking, and maybe Adrian, you might, with your knowledge of licensing, refresh my memory here. I seem to recall that at least one of the delivery or companies will give kind of a green undertaking for either electric vehicles or foot-powered vehicles. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that actually, Councillor. No, I mean I know sometimes agreements are made. We add conditions to licenses for different operators, but I didn't know that a particular operator had that in mind actually. But
I may be conflating that with some of the conditions we've imposed. So my apologies. Okay, no, that's fine, Tony. That I don't think I have any further questions right now. I'll pass back to the chair. Thank you.
Sorry, can I bring in Lorna, please?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to add, I don't know, in the agenda there was agreed conditions with the police, and the additional conditions that was agreed, that was after 2300 hours, drivers shall wait inside the premises between deliveries / for deliveries. And then another condition which was agreed was delivery drivers / riders will be given clear written instructions to use their vehicles in a responsible manner, so to not to cause nuisance to any residents or generally outside the licensed premises, not to leave engines running when the vehicle is parked, and not to obstruct the highway. The license holder will positively encourage delivery drivers / riders to use quieter vehicles that are less likely to cause a nuisance, such as bicycles. And they were conditions that were imposed by the police and agreed by the applicant. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that point while there's this discussion around delivery.
Chair, sorry, just to follow on from that, can I just explain that those conditions were the reason behind my question? Because I'm not quite sure how an establishment of the size of the applicant will have that much control over Just Eat or Uber Eats or Deliveroo, no matter how much they exhort them to follow the guidelines and the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Councillor Chevot-Verdier.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing Lorna as well, because it was actually perfectly ties with my question. Lorna, I don't know if this one is for you, but you've mentioned the conditions, particularly the one I'm interested in, because so many residents have said about, you know, drivers with their engines going all day. That after 11, drivers would have to wait inside the premises. But how enforceable is this? Because, so when does a person start being a driver for any venue? Is it when the order chimes on their phone and they know which shop they will be delivering from? Or is it from the time that someone parks on the street next to those venues? Because my point being that delivery drivers actually, when they wait with their engines on, is when they don't have an order, but they're waiting for one to come through. And at this stage, they're not the delivery drivers for this shop or any shop, because they don't have anyone. It's from when the order comes on their phone. So essentially, an army, and you know, we don't shame people doing this job. We need them. They contribute to society. Nevertheless, if they wait around with their engines on all day, well, how can we tackle that? Because that's the real issue. It's not the point that people have an order and they're next to the shop and they go in to collect it. It's between orders when they wait.
I'm going to pass this over to Adrian to answer, because he might have more of a know what's enforceable.
Okay,
From
sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
I know what you mean, Councillor. I think it's a very difficult situation, really, and I mean, it's, you know, as you said, they're not engaged per se as a delivery driver until they get that order. But as you said, the premises has no control over them whilst they're waiting for that order to come through. So I don't, and I don't think there's any way to control that by conditions on a license. I think that can only be controlled by, you know, policing that area via possibly by the council's let team. Could be told to sort of go and do patrols in that area to make sure that people aren't loitering whilst waiting for those orders to come through. But yeah, in short, there's nothing that we could put on the license to stop that, unfortunately.
Thank you. And to mitigate some of the effects, would it be possible to ask the applicant to, for instance, on Loftus Road on the east side, closer to the business, seems to be a parking bay for motorcycles. And from what we've heard from residents tonight is that some people who park there don't have a permit. Some of the conditions talk about CCTV camera installed on the venue, but my understanding is that it would be sort of closer to the entrance. How about a camera near to this parking bay that could deter people who don't have a parking permit? And also if drivers also discard, etc. And that's maybe a question for the legal officer too. Did we talk about portable bins that could be left out during certain hours that the business would be responsible for?
Councillor, sorry, did you say that was for legal, or did you want us to?
I suppose for the camera bit facing the parking bay, that could be you, and I think for the bins, perhaps Goethe, you could take that.
I think, yeah, just in terms of the CCTV point, I think a business, you know, sorry, if that's a camera, do you mean from the business facing the park? Yeah, I think they would need to be very careful in terms of GDPR collecting information that they don't have to collect and how they process that information. So we would advise them not to do that. Any CCTV on a premises should only collect customers of that premises and maybe the immediate outside of that premises, and shouldn't really stray into other areas. So I wouldn't advise that they do that.
And apart from what Adrian said, Councillor Florian, it's also the issue of parking, because I think your point was to control the parking of motor vehicles, which is not a licensable activity.
Thank you. And on the, Goethe, perhaps with you still, on the possibility of having bins, which I understand are outside the business and possibly on the public way.
We have conditions to control litter, which we impose in this sort of licensing. So councillors can revise those conditions, and maybe the applicant's representative can confirm, if you are minded to grant the license tonight, whether they would agree to any conditions in relation to litter.
Okay, thank you both. I suppose, Tony, over to you.
Yeah, I can confirm that I think we are open to a litter collection, perhaps at closing and perhaps one midway through the evening for the immediate area, just to make sure that there is no detritus from the premises.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for the speaking time. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. Councillor Stanton, do you have any more questions?
No, Chair.
Okay, I've been making some notes as we go, and I do have quite a few questions. I think many of the residents could have made the same point, so could answer the same question. So please don't feel that I haven't addressed it to you. I'm just doing it in the way that my notes have appeared to you. So firstly, the community safety officer, Carol, you've said that we've had 25 residents object, and that you've looked at these objections, and that I'm quite interested. Can you tell me how you know the area and just the general vibe of the area and the effect that this licence application, if granted, would have on local residents, please?
Hi, Chair. Yes, I've been working in the north of the borough now for 2 years. Started off during COVID, and the types of reports that we have been receiving, as in community safety, have increased. It was quite profound during COVID, and we could account for that. But more recently, I've even had conversations with licensing and conversations with our highways team, just to see if we can find a solution to because of the level of reports that we've been receiving. I do patrol with our let officers. I do go out there. I do receive council inquiries, which I respond to. I do receive complaints from residents, which I provide responses to as well. So I'm quite familiar with the area. And as I'm saying, it's not directed, my kind of objection is not directed towards these particular premises. It's just in light of the types of premises that we have seen, particular premises on the corner of residential streets, that has attracted a lot of issues, a lot around antisocial behaviour, and some elements of criminality. And what one of the other residents did also mention is that we just don't want to see an increase in that. So it's nothing against this particular business operating. It's just that we are familiar with what's already happening on other streets, and we don't want it to happen to get worse. So that's really why I'm objecting. I do receive, as I say, I do receive a lot of complaints, a lot of reports, and I'm familiar with the area. So as my job, that's why I'm objecting.
Carol, thank you. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
I don't know if you recall, one of the residents had mentioned her young daughter's going, particularly when they're coming home from school, and having to go to the end of the road and meet them. If you can speak to that a little bit, that would be appreciated. But also, what probably the most burning question is, it's probably a question for a police officer rather than yourself, but in your experience, could that kind of behaviour lead to a breach of the peace?
To be honest, I have had reports that residents don't feel safe for their young daughters to go past men who are on the ends of the road loitering about. But I haven't, it's in a mixture of other reports. So for instance, I will get a report predominantly about antisocial behaviour, litter, etc. And these comments are added into that. Nobody has reported any particular incident. And my advice is always to report any particular incidents to the police, so that they can look into the matter. and also if they have any identification of who this person is or who the individuals are. But I haven't actually dealt with any cases that have come through to me, which has been primarily around harassment of young women in that particular area.
Okay, and can you understand the issue of parents' concerns?
Yes.
That it might happen, and that's not because they're. I'm trying to get to is whether somebody's just being a bit hyper or whether it's a genuine reason for concern.
It is a genuine reason for concern because I myself, as I say, I visit the location Uxbridge Road frequently, so I can see how somebody walking along the road, particularly a young person, might feel afraid. I visit early morning, during the day, and also in the evenings. And more, I've witnessed a lot of incidents at night because obviously it gets darker earlier. So I have been in the area, not late into the night, not into the early hours of the morning because I don't live locally, but I have witnessed things that's happened under cover of darkness, so to speak. So we are familiar with the types of activities and the types of behaviours that I've witnessed and people have reported to the council. So yes, I can understand residents' concerns here.
Thank you. To the administration, we've had quite a few people who've mentioned as vehicles engine idling and parking violations, which really come under the Environment Department and the noise and vibration. The noise and air pollution teams. Are they aware of this application and have they made any comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, they are aware because it gets obviously all licensing applications are sent to all responsible authorities. Noise and nuisance being one of, and the environmental team being one of the responsible authorities, and no representations were received.
Have they actually? Do we know who it was sent to? Which officers?
I can have a look.
The reason for me saying that is, from what other residents have said, this seems to be a contentious issue, that they are reporting concerns and they're not being done. And I'm sure the our noise teams and that for both licensing and planning and the whole really we'll get tons and tons of emails. So unless somebody flags it up specifically, so
I can have a look at what officer it was sent to and if there was any comments. But obviously, this is just for the record for this particular premises. There's no enforcement history because there's never been a license at this premises.
Okay.
So
right,
no licensable enforcement. And I don't know if Adrian has anything else to add.
Thank you, Adrian. Please.
Yeah, I was only just going to add that we do have, just because of the amount of emails that officers get, we do have a meeting every 2 weeks with all responsible authorities, including the noise team, and we go through any of the applications that are in their consultation period. So they are aware of those applications, and we have discussions about them. So I don't think it would have been missed by that team. They would have looked at it, reviewed it, and made a decision not to make an objection.
Thank you.
No problem.
Now, if he's still here, is Miles Brockbank available for a question? Miles, is Miles still here?
Seems he has left the meeting, Chair.
Okay. So going on to is Lucinda still here?
Yes.
Hello,
Yes,
Lucinda.
hi there.
Can you help the committee just with some issues about what's going on the pavement? And I want to know if there's people queuing on the pavement or waiting or just loitering in response to a given premise. Obviously, this one's not operating a license at the moment, so it's hard to say that. But I think the gist of what was being said by you and several others were of either people queuing or waiting outside.
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously, Revive has been open for a while, and we always have people standing around outside, drinking their coffee, smoking cigarettes and all the other behaviour, and they block the pavement. But on the other side, where Tigers is, they also congregate that side, and that's just from the customers from Revive. So if you add Tigers into the mix, you're going to have more people standing outside. There's no, it feels, what will be done in order to make sure that those people that are collecting takeaways, that are not the delivery drivers, people actually wanting to eat a takeaway, that they'll actually move on. What's to stop them from also loitering on the pavement? And then, of course, as many people have mentioned already, you have the delivery drivers that stand around waiting, whether it's waiting for the food to be ready from that establishment or whether they're waiting for their next job. So it's just too many people blocking the pavements. It's impossible to walk down the pavements sometimes.
Okay, thank you. And Tilly?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. Just, we've heard about, are you a doctor of medicine?
No, but I work at Imperial College. I'm a scientist.
Okay. So sorry, I won't ask you a medical related question. Tilly, if we have, as we've heard several people say about smoking cannabis and marijuana, and I think a lot of us in the borough have encountered that problem and it blowing up the road. Does cannabis smoke and or cigarette smoke, does that from people hanging around on the street who are visiting premises, does that enter people's homes?
It's highly likely to, at the level where the Brockbanks and Virginia Ironside are, because that's where most of it goes on. It tends to be just slightly behind the trees where it's less well lit. So they leave their bikes and motorcycles nearer the junction and then loiter in the first darker spaces. So yes, it's highly likely to, but it also crowds the pavement and makes it very intimidating to walk up there. There are some regular characters who are probably the vendors who serve the peripatetic community of delivery drivers who come and go. And they act as attractants and cluster on both sides of the road, partly sitting down on the walls on the other side of the road. On the western side of the road, most of the walls have some kind of defence to resist people sitting. On the eastern side of the road, there are more open walls, so you get people sitting on walls and clustering there. And the issue, I echo what Carol said. We don't have it's not the restaurant per se. It's the potential increase in delivery drivers and riders outside of hours and encouraging that into hours where we really do, we don't want more problems. We want to solve our problems. We want appropriate cameras.
Thank you very much, Tilly. So perhaps if I could get Virginia Ironside to sort of speak a bit. I had wanted to speak to Miles Brockbank about what he'd explained earlier, but Virginia, I understand you live quite close to the Shepherd's Bush Road. Can you tell me what it's like, and do you end up getting smoke from people using premises, whether it's cannabis or cigarettes or whatever, coming into your home?
No, I don't. I have mostly my windows are sealed up with double glazing, particularly now it's so cold. So, I mean, no, I don't. But I'm very aware that I only have to go out of my front door, and I mean, I know the smell well, and no, it's all around.
Okay, so you notice it when you come out of your home rather than in your home.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And if I have a question for the applicant, and maybe Antonio can assist us this. We heard earlier about there being it being an upmarket for families business. Sort of upmarket always sounds good, and I'm guilty of assigning upmarket to many things I've done and had, and that. can you give us a better idea of upmarket? And bearing in mind you're speaking to somebody who's a third generation resident of the borough and have family living in, not in that part, but in the W12 area.
Certainly, Chair. I think we're all familiar with the area at the moment. It's a newly refurbished shop, and I mean, it's a little bit late now, but I would urge you to check out the website, because what we're trying to do is if you liken it to sort of Soho, Kensington, I mean, obviously it's not that type of venue, but the way we serve the meals and presentation and the service is way above the sort of general smoky cafes that I think the residents are pertaining to. And I do completely understand the objections in the area. I think the whole area could do with an uplift, but I do believe it starts with good quality premises.
Okay, and the other one, which I think I've seen it on every licensing application. This is a family business. Now, I know you don't mean Italian New York families when they say a family business.
Yeah.
But can we take away the assumptions and say what kind of a family business is intended in this instance? And the other question that I'm sure residents, if I asked them, would voice is saying, well, why does a family business, which implies having young people and children, want to be open in the early hours or when they should be at home doing their homework and in bed?
Quite agree. It's simply a husband and wife team. And I believe now that the application won't be using late night refreshment Monday to Wednesday or Sunday to Wednesday. So late night refreshment is only applied for Thursday, Friday and Saturday, which will be operating after 2300 hours. And that is obviously simply, as I explained in my submission, that we are hitting some serious economic times. We do need to try and recapture some revenue, and a simple hour and a half or an hour in the evening just mops up anyone, rather than having to usher them out the door at 11. It just mops up a little bit of extra revenue.
Okay, thank you. So can I go to Councillor? So I do have more questions, but let me give way to Councillor Silva-Purdier.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to pick up on several of the points that you raised and you talked about with some residents just now. And that's a question to, again, Goethe and Adrian, sorry. We've talked about, some of the residents have talked about a lot, people amassing at the corner of these two shops, the Revive and Tigers, down on Loftus Road and the corner of Uxbridge. What conditions could be imposed in terms of crowd management? Again, I appreciate it's outside of the premises and once customers have left and they're on the premises. So what condition in terms of crowd management? Are you okay? Have you had a catastrophic crash, Paul?
Yeah, my coffee cup landed on my. No, I don't know. It's something to do with the internet.
All right. So basically, shortening and repeating the question is, Adrian, what could we do in terms of holding the business responsible for ensuring that no people amass? And it's because it's quite a lengthy business, then we could control quite a large segment of the pavement.
Yes, Councillor, I think it's going to be really challenging if these people who are congregating aren't direct customers. It might be, say, for example, that one of those people goes in and is a customer of the premises, and then other people congregate, outside along with those other people. And the premises can only really control its customers, and they can only control those customers, up to a certain point. So they can't control them when they're sort of further down the road. It's almost directly outside the premises. but I think there's very little that the premises could do for just general congregations outside the premises. You could say, for example, we have a litter condition that says the immediate outside of the premises should be kept clear of litter. So you could say that people should not congregate directly outside the premises. But then if you do that, they would obviously just naturally just congregate very close, but to the sides of it. So I don't know that would really solve the problem for residents, really.
Yeah, that's understandable. And how about any condition to do with the management of running engines? Again, for maybe just scooters that park on that parking bay, would that be a possibility?
I mean, directly outside, you might be able to say that any customers coming to the venue should not, should not keep their vehicles running. But again, it's how do you enforce that? It would be quite difficult. I think it would be more like a management thing. It would be more desirable that they ask the customers to do that. I think if we were to ever enforce that condition and potentially take it to the magistrates court, that would be very difficult to get anything out of that, really.
Okay, thank you. What conditions currently exist to not serve? Because I understand there wouldn't be any alcohol, so I'm trying to understand if it applies. Are there any conditions currently that force the business to refuse serving a customer who's visibly intoxicated?
So, I mean, you could have a condition virtually as you've said it, I suppose. Yeah, no, you could, there's no problem having a condition to that effect. Crime and disorder is one of the licensing objectives, as is public nuisance. And I think you could say that if you were serving somebody food and they were very intoxicated, that they might well just go off and drop it on the ground or not finish it. So I don't think there'd be a problem having a condition worded carefully to that effect.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
No
Chair.
problem.
Any further questions from councillors? I just have a couple of points, if I may, and this is to Mauricio Karam.
Yes.
Thank you. You were explaining some of the issues around the area, and I have to say I found your explanation very easy to follow. But the pollution and the rubbish, and we've heard other people talking about putting rubbish bins outside now, whether or not the Environment Department would agree to that. Do you think that would solve the problem?
Chair, unfortunately not. As we know, the premises can only have control on a few bins outside near them, even if they were council bins. As you can see in other restaurants in the area near the McDonald's in Uxbridge, or in the Chicken Cottage and Kitchen Chicken in the corner of Devonport and Goalhawk, even if they try to enforce, the people that visit just walk away and throw things on the street. So unfortunately, having a few bins outside in the area will not solve the issue.
Thank you. Lorna, from licensing, you mentioned earlier about getting extra council law enforcement teams to patrol the area if the license was granted. Is my understanding correct?
Chair, yeah, I think that was something I mentioned earlier on.
Oh, sorry.
That's certainly something that we could raise with the manager of the law enforcement team and just make him aware of the issues that residents have outlined. I mean, it sounds like residents have mentioned this issue beforehand, but obviously, we can go back to them and say, look, there's a real problem here, and ask them to focus on certain areas.
So it doesn't sound a satisfactory to anybody solution, because one, if it targets a new licensee applicant who's not done anything wrong, but we're sending law enforcement teams around to them, it seems a bit heavy-handed. And on the other front is we're going to take valuable council resources away from areas where they're much needed because of a new licence. So I don't really see this. This is a solution in the future for existing problems, but I don't see it as a prevention measure. Is my understanding correct?
Well, I wouldn't like to speak on behalf of the law enforcement team, but yeah, no, I appreciate it would be, it'd be difficult to enforce and to regulate that activity. So, and they only have finite resources. So yeah, if you are taking officers from one area, you're moving them away from something else. But I mean, they could always offer advice. They do offer advice. They don't always have to enforce things. So they could be there to give guidance and advice to people who are congregating in the area, rather than telling them what you're doing is wrong, so to speak. So there is that element, but I think it's definitely worth probably having a conversation with the law enforcement manager separately to this meeting as well.
And just broadly speaking, within a couple of 100 meters of this would be licensed. How many other licensed premises are there?
I think from the report, I think roughly this is, but without checking the report, I think there's about 8 other licensed premises.
But within 200 meters?
I'd need to check with
No, Chair, it was within 75 meters.
Okay, within 75 meters, okay.
Well, the supplementary agenda A was looking at premises within 75 meters of the premises.
Okay, and so I just wanted to get a little bit of perspective on that, and then just on I'm following up on Councillor Stanton's questions of earlier on, where he quite rightly asked about delivery numbers and the organisations that come. We don't have any control unless the premises, and I'm looking to Antonia Hunt, that I've understood correctly, you wouldn't be directly employing delivery drivers. The delivery drivers would be contracted from the customers who they're going to deliver to.
That's correct, Chair. Yeah.
And therefore, you would have no effective control whatsoever on them.
I do believe, just to answer a point that was asked earlier, I do believe Deliveroo are implementing some electric bikes, which obviously reduces noise and pollution.
Yeah, but you can't say you can only come to my premises if you have an electric vehicle.
I don't believe so at this time.
No, that's in common with. So I wasn't picking on your business, because that's common to other businesses right across the borough. And and finally, is Goethe still with us? Goethe?
Yes, Chair.
Can you just reinforce how which authorities deal with parking and parking control, parking violations, and the other thing that's mentioned, there's been a few issues around planning. I know you're a licensing specialist lawyer. Do you know much about
planning, Chair?
And planning, yeah. So I would assume that all of the things and some of the measures mentioned, and sticking things on the outsides of buildings, and using doorways and stuff like that, would come under a separate planning application.
That's correct, Chair. Yes.
Thank you very much. So,
in relation to parking, you had a question about parking?
Yes. Can we? I think you indicated before, but the licensing committee have, as I understand it, they have no say over parking and parking enforcement.
It's not a licensing objective, and it's not enforceable. So we can't enforce parking by adding any conditions to the license.
Okay. So how would we normally deal with if a license is going to potentially cause parking problems and traffic problems? That would have to be addressed within the licensing application, rather than as putting conditions about parking restrictions or parking enforcement within the license.
But there should be parking restrictions on the streets as part of. So it's not a licensable condition. You cannot add any conditions to restrict any parking of the vehicles on the road. And I suspect all the Hammersmith and Fulham roads would have parking restrictions for either they would be only for residents, or there will be payable only. So we are talking here about a license application after 2300, which it will be very easy to restrict if there is an application hourly on the road. And I don't know, the residents can confirm how the parking would be. But with the motorbikes, I don't know whether they need any parking permission to enter or to park.
Okay, thank you. Are any of the residents willing to try and assist me with my question? No?
Hang on, Chair. We have Emily, I think, wanted to speak. They're on mute. The person's on mute.
Emily, do you want to come off mute? If I just sort of rephrase my question to you. Now, from memory, Loftus Road is a 9 to 5 parking restriction.
No, it has recently changed. It is shared bays until 9 p.m, but it is unrestricted after 9 p.m. So that is why we get moped and Uber drivers using free parking after 9 p.m, 7 days a week. Also, they ignore the double yellow lines at the junction. It's double yellow lines, and the Ubers and the mopeds use that as free parking, and the community officer are unable to control it. There's no camera on that area, so they are using, double yellow lines as free parking, which is extremely dangerous.
Now, would I be right in assuming that, as well as that the other pressures your parking comes under is that the zone adjacent to it to the east, so towards Westfield, has got more onerous parking restrictions and therefore automatically adds to traffic congestion and problems, as does that very famous football team that Loftus Road is synonymous with?
Yeah, no, we have had years of problems, and it's only recently that we've managed to restrict the parking till 9 p.m, but still you see people waiting for the free parking to come at 9, and particularly on sort of match days, etc. So yeah.
And just trying to work out the time specifics of this, so could you sort of just, I'm not going to hold you to it exactly, just give me a rough idea of the times when the problems that we've been discussing start to become apparent?
It's basically all day, every day. I was out this morning at about 11 o'clock, quiet Monday morning. There were delivery drivers on mopeds parked on double yellow lines. I counted 6 and I photographed it, just because I knew this meeting was happening this afternoon, and in case anybody, wanted evidence of this. There was a vehicle, Uber driver double parked against a delivery van. It's not just after 9 p.m. That people are parking on double yellow lines.
And a final question, which is it's a voluntary question. If either you or the applicant want to answer it, have you had any discussions between the premises and local residents to see if there was any common ground that you could mitigate some of the problems or all of the problems with?
Personally, I haven't spoken to the owner of the premises or the staff. I have in the past spoken to the staff at Revive, when particularly during lockdown there were I can't really understand. No, okay. No,
it's the different premises, so no, okay. I don't think I'm going to take up any more of your time, and I would like to thank you all for your assistance with these questions. Can I just ask if either of the other committee members have any questions? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the next section, which is the summing up And I'm going to start first of all with the licensing officer, Lorna McKenna. Would you like to sum up, please, Lorna?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. The community safety officer, Carol Fergus-Thomas.
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. And the objectors, I'm going to hold you to the 3 minutes that we've allotted for you to sum up on everything you've heard so far. And I will take it in the order that you're on my list. So Miles Brockbank. No. Susanna Brockbank. Mauricio Karam. Mauricio, would you like to sum up at all?
Nothing to add. Thank you. I think it's been very clear and very consistent.
Thank you. Luman Adiyaman. No, he's not here. Lucinda George.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Samuel Allen. Gwendolyn and Michael Bradley. Virginia Ironside.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Tilly.
Nothing to add, thank you.
And Emma Plunkett.
Yeah, just to say that I think it's going to be very difficult for these conditions to be held to. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we come to the applicant and his representative, and I can give you up to 30 minutes to sum up. And despite that not being the Loftus Road football ground in your background, I'm happy to allow you 30 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually Liverpool, but
is it really? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. I think the issues are pretty clear, and we completely sympathise with the residents. As I say, we seriously seek to enhance the area, and I think a litter picking condition could also help that. Also, I believe that we can have signage asking residents, or sorry, customers to leave the area quietly. I think that would all be an addition by the front door. Just to sum up, we are currently actually operating. So just so that everyone's aware, we're not adding an influx of bikes. We are already operating. It's only for the extra hour to an hour and a half that we'll be going on to. Other than that, I think it's been a long night and everything's been said. I just, yeah, I hope that the application is seen on its merit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't think I need to say anything further. So at this point, the committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate room. An adjournment tile will be displayed during the deliberations, and you are welcome to remain in the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this may take some time. If you don't wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow morning. Can I ask members to turn off their video, council members to turn off their video, mute their microphones and join the private meeting in Teams for deliberations? And before we do that, can I just remind, because of the a lot of issues and a lot of feeling here, I think this, over and above anything that this committee decides, these things need to be raised and they need to be listened to properly. And if you want to email the stuff to me, I'm happy to put you in contact with the right people to deal with these. And I also noticed that really this is you have the unfortunate position of being at the convolution of 3 different council wards. So I will make it my business to contact all of those councillors on your behalf and to forward anything you want me to. Okay, then I'll leave you now.
Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. Karen, are we ready to proceed? Karen?
Chair,
Yeah, are you ready for us to proceed?
yes, I think you can proceed.
Okay, and I will I'll start. The London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham summary decision of the licensing subcommittee, 13th of February 2023. Tigers Diner, 288 Uxbridge Road, London W12 7JA, the premises. The committee has considered an application for the grant of a premises licence under the Licensing Act 2003 for the provision of a late night refreshment. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of the case and promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, to reject the application. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days from the date of notification of the full decision. This is the decision of the Licensing Committee, 13th of February 2023. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night.